I'm Isyander.
And I'm Koda.
And today we're going to be covering the Deathwatch.
The Deathwatch.
Yes, they won
We're going
the
to be
poll.
watching death.
It's more like death is watching you.
Oh.
That's what it's closer to. It is, for Cliff Notes, they are, remember the Grey Knights? It's been a while since we covered them.
Yes.
Okay.
How could I forget?
They are kind of like that, but exclusively on aliens.
Ah.
Yes. So they are kind of like it's like the Men in Black, right? You have seen that movie.
I have seen that movie.
Okay, so
all three.
Okay, I can. Good, you stopped at 3.
Is there a fourth?
Yeah, Men in Black International. We don't talk about it.
Is it not good?
We don't talk about it.
Oh, shame.
Anyway,
they probably didn't re-up Will Smith's contract.
You actually got it in one. Anyway, they're the Men in Black who work with like the actual Men in Black, the Inquisitors, and they're
like the Men in the Black with guns, I assume.
Between you,
whereas like you've got the guys in the office just doing filing paperwork, doing immigration forms for aliens, and then you've got the guys with the what did they call it, the cricket, the tiny gun that Will Smith gets as a joke. That's the most powerful thing they have. Yeah.
You've got it in one. Inquisitors like to talk a big game, and they do outrank Space Marines. That's a fact. They outrank pretty much everybody
on paper.
However, even Inquisitors know not to talk too much when surrounded by Space Marines, you know? Like, there are several situations where an Inquisitor has to be polite about their request because they recognize this is a ship full of the Emperor's finest weapons. I should probably say please and thank you.
These are people who wield weapons that should be mounted on planes.
And they just wield them pretty effectively too, is the thing. So that's kind of like the way it breaks out. Like you have the Ordo Xenos, and they will deal with like an alien problem, and they will deal with it well. They're not incompetent critically, but when you want to kind of ground it into a fine paste, you send these guys
because it's Space Marines. They're going to be the most effective at grinding things to dust.
Yeah, and they also have very cool names. I'm not gonna lie. Like in canon, I love the titles they get because it's what makes me realize Imperial propaganda works. They're called the Shield That Slays.
Okay, that's good.
Right?
That's
and instead of
good.
going out on tours of duty, it's long vigils or long watches.
Does
it not sound so cool?
It works.
Like it's so easy.
It works.
It's so easy to mock the common imperial peasant who's like, I worship the God Emperor. He will protect me, even though I've seen this Dark Eldar thing. But like, he's seen the Dark Eldar. Please send me the shield that slays. Now he doesn't know the shield's going to turn around on him. But for now,
you have observed the Xeno, therefore you are just as good as them.
You saw something you shouldn't have, and especially since these guys in Grey Knights occupy space in like the scale of 40k, where it's a space I like to call Space Marines prestiged, or Space Marines squared. It is like when you look
Pack-a-punched Space Marines?
Yes. When you look at a Space Marine, they are pretty much a god amongst men. They are the strongest. They're the most competent. If you have 100 men, maybe one will be good enough to ascend to the upper echelons and become the Emperor's finest weapon, a Space Marine. Roll credits. You know, they land. They do the whole thing. Like the Space Marine 2 trailers do it so good.
I just love it.
Yeah, I love it because the guardsman is immediately like, I need to kneel. I need to kneel. There are enemies all around me. That guy can fix it. That guy can fix it. I'm 100% certain he doesn't even know my name.
I just watched a big guy in blue run way too fast to be reasonable to put a sword through a Tyranid.
Yeah.
I'm kneeling.
Yep, precisely. And then the space the Grey Knights and the Deathwatch occupy is, well, they exist in a space slightly above that, where if you have 100 Space Marines, maybe one will be good enough to ascend to the upper echelons and become one of the Emperor's finest weapons. Remember the Deathwatch?
I can't remember what military movie this is from, but I just remember like some like drill sergeant going, "You are the best of the best of the best of the best," and he keeps going for a little bit.
Yep. That's these guys' roll credit. That's well, maybe not the best of the best of the best of the best, but there's a couple of bests in there.
There's a couple of bests.
There's a few bests in there.
A few layers of bests.
Which is why whenever like a Space Marine meets another Space Marine, but they've served in the Deathwatch, it's a little bit of a fangirl thing. Like you see it in Space.
You see it in the Space Marine 2,
Yeah,
like opening mission where like you served with the Deathwatch.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like, oh my god, okay, you know, like you're old and you're experienced, but you've got Deathwatch experience.
It's funny because you can see. I think Gadriel is his name.
Mm-hmm.
He's like sitting there. He looks like he's trying not to freak out a little bit. He's trying to keep the stoic Space Marine face, but he's just like, "It is an honor to serve among you."
Inside, you know, he's going like at the top of his lungs.
He's veritably squeeing.
Yeah, and today we're going to cover everything that makes him do that, and everything about the Deathwatch, except for their weapons. Because we already covered those.
We did that.
Yeah, they use a ton of Area 51 style stuff, and all of that is covered on Patreon.
Locked behind the Area 51 gates of Patreon.com.
No. But you can head over there. You can get an extra episode every single week, like this week's, which is on the weird weapons they use, such as the servitors that look an awful lot like Eldar. I wonder how they accomplished that. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that at all. Or their weapons that look suspiciously like Necron blades, but certainly aren't.
It can be.
It's impossible. Yeah. On top of that, you get, well, it's an episode every single week. And at this point, I think there's over 100 back there.
Well, take how many we have on here and nearly double it. So
yeah, as well as access.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's as well as access to the Discord, live streams, bloopers if they happen, and you help us keep this show going. And you can get all of that by heading on over to patreon.com/Isyander and Koda. For those of you already there, thank you very much. For those of you doing it as I speak, thank you as well. And now let's talk about, I was going to say the sketchiest group of Space Marines, but not quite. They're up there though.
They're not sketchy. They're just frightening.
No, they're sketchy.
Oh.
You saw their weapons.
No.
They're definitionally sketchy. You gotta remember, the gear they use has been iterated on and advanced on. Where else have you seen improvement in 40k? Because the Mechanicus doesn't do it. They stagnate.
Nowhere. Maybe the Custodes?
And do you see what I mean by you should never see them?
Huh. They're the only group of anything that does any form of the scientific method in the Imperium.
And I have no idea how they managed to convince the Mechanicus that Space Marines can do it, but certainly Tech Priests shouldn't. I think
are these like all just Tech Marine expats?
Let's get into that actually, because it's not like a chapter in the traditional sense, because they don't, like, you know, it's like, we were once a legion and now we're fractured into chapters. And like everybody in the legion is still descendant from the same guy.
So they have like a little bit of the same DNA, and you can see in their chapter, but they have formed their own identity at this point, personality.
And then the chapters typically recruit from like some poor death world, which they put a very, very high attrition rate on their young male population. As they put them through the Hunger Games in any kind of way, really. Sometimes it's the Hunger Games, but it's the Arctic. Sometimes it's the Hunger Games, but it's like a desert brawl. Moral of the story is, to be a Space Marine, so many kids have to go, man. So many kids are going. These guys don't exercise that same toll because they pick from other chapters. They already pick Space Marines who are seasoned.
Hence why Titus is in there.
And so it's very like a mix and match kind of a thing, which is why like chapter is hard for me to call it that. But it's
like some other weird third thing.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's literally just, you did so good against the orcs, we need you for one mission. To which they go, okay, sure.
Why not?
And then they go do that single mission.
And then do they go back to their chapter?
You served in the Deathwatch. Think about it. That is a mission so tough. These guys with all these weapons and all this gear couldn't accomplish it without your specific help.
So we grabbed you specifically.
And we got it done. And now you can leave. It's like, you are the best pilot ever. Please come fly redacted. And then
we will give you redacted plane to fly.
And then you go fly redacted and you come back. And what did you fly? Something. Was it fast? Kinda.
I signed an NDA.
Not even I signed an NDA. Did you fly? Maybe. Because you can't even confirm that.
Basically what we did with that thing for a little bit.
You got it in one. if anyone in the Imperium would get a Blackbird, these guys are
It'd be the Deathwatch.
They're high on the list. Again, they occupy like easily the top 5 of sketchy sub-factions in the Imperium. They're not the sketchiest. But they're always in the Hall of Fame, you know? They're always in the vicinity. They are in that group of, you saw me, Therefore, you must go. You know of my existence, and specifically, you know of what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like, oh, you saw a pilot. That's cool. No, you saw a pilot piloting an SR-71 in the 60s.
Ooh.
You don't get to live for that.
Nope.
Sorry.
Nope.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Or whatever the modern equivalent is. It's like that level. And so sometimes it is just for that single mission, like Titus you saw. Sometimes a while. It is a long
How long
time.
was he with the Deathwatch, or does it say...
Like a century.
Oh.
It was a while.
Oh.
Yeah. It depends on the needs, really. And they're split up into like watch fortresses, which are secret bases all over the Imperium. It's so cool. It
so literally is Area 51. Like, you may know the general vicinity around it, but you can only interpret that by how many things go into that area and don't come back.
Yeah. And sometimes they are just literally like an Area 51 on a planet you don't go. And other times like a big space station somewhere that we don't really know about. None of their fortresses are on maps. Like, of course, we truly don't know where they are.
They're incredibly secret.
I'm sure they have a way of keeping track of them, but like they don't share
Well, it
that.
depends. Like, Britain has a mutually assured destruction measure in place.
Yeah, the submarine somewhere.
Yeah, the three of them.
Oh, there are three of them?
The three of them. I think they rotate them. So, like, there's always, like, two in port, but there's always one out there. Just somewhere, and the British military / government doesn't know. They just know they have a safe in there that's, like, handwritten by the Prime Minister and the, like, royal in charge at the time that says, hey, do this just in case this.
Yeah, kind of. That's pretty much what
in
these
case of
are.
emergency, unlock 5-inch thick metal safe and maybe nuke them back.
Maybe it's that exact same level of it's probably floating near an enemy of Britain, but like we don't know where.
We literally have
that doesn't
no
narrow
clue
it down at all. Frankly, you know,
there's an entire ocean there. It makes up like 70% of the Earth.
That's the Imperium.
Where do I look?
They're typically in spaces where there's lots of aliens, but let me say that again. They're typically in space where there's lots of aliens. That doesn't narrow it down at all. They're effectively somewhere doing something, and they are
filtered for 70% of the galaxy.
Yeah, pretty much. You can sometimes guess where they are. Like, for example, there's the whole ghoul stars thing, or like that whole have we not covered that? Don't worry about that. Or like the whole section of have we really not covered that?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, we'll just keep pushing then. Or like that whole section that the Necrons are currently working real hard to
the Pariah Nexus.
Yeah, cut away from the war.
I was going to say
that they're close by. You know,
if aliens are doing something significant, there's probably a watch somewhere there,
right? And there's usually a watch commander there who is really high ranking, man. Like, blow up a planet, you don't get to know why high ranking.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
Yes, these guys basically don't get to leave the Deathwatch. Like, it's a lifetime appointment. I'm sure maybe,
if you try to leave, they'll kill you.
Like, you just know too much. You just know too much at this point, man. Like, you know where and how to push the button. I'm sorry. And
imagine if you leave and let something slip.
And typically these aren't like huge either. There's only like sub 100 Space Marines on there. Like this isn't an army. This is very much so like a special forces kind of thing.
that's still a 10th of a chapter.
Yeah, again, and like 4 Space Marines can accomplish a lot. Like 4 Space Marines can destabilize a country,
especially with the things they're equipped with.
And so, but these guys are usually split into teams of 10, and these are called kill teams. Sometimes it's slightly less than 10, but like 10 if you really want to accomplish something. And you want to guess what these kill teams accomplish?
Killing?
Pretty much. Yeah. There's usually like one commander there, or an Inquisitor, and they just wreck something's face. Be it, like you saw in the beginning, a huge amount of Tyranids.
They put bullets in something. They put acid in something. They put fire in something. Maybe they'll throw a cryo bomb or two.
Yeah, that is their full job.
Anything to make you not around anymore.
Not it around anymore. It's not a you to them. Like it's very much so like an it situation. They filter very aggressively for who works for them. And so a lot of the time they pick people who are hateful. like that is a common thread in most members of the Deathwatch. They hate aliens
They
much.
picked someone who observed directly the work of a Dark Eldar homunculus.
Yeah, that helps. That certainly helps. They have to have that passion about it. They have to love their job. And that comes in different ways. But typically, it's very much so like, you know, the stereotypical, like, purge the heretic kind of vibe.
Yeah, purge the heretic, kill the Xeno.
Yep.
I don't remember the third one.
Yep. And so they go out there and do their mission, and they don't get much support. I'm going to be honest.
They're their own support, because if anybody knows about them, now it's a problem.
The support happened beforehand. You were equipped for this mission. That's it.
Or you were the first to drop in the case of Space Marine 2, which now I'm realizing why they had no support and nobody was around to...
Mm-hmm. You see it now? And all of their specialists have a lot harder of a time because, like, for example, the apothecary, your medic, the guy whose job it is to help you get up and collect your blueprints should you fall, because, like, gene seed doesn't grow on trees, and it's the only way we make Marines, man. And they die really often if the tabletop's anything to go by. They go by really often. Their job is made harder because not only do they not get, like, multiple apothecaries there, it's usually just a couple tops, but they then have to collect the gene seed and ship it back to their home chapter. They're not all from the same chapter. Like, an Ultramarine could die to your left, a Dark Angel could die to your right, and you have to, like, bottle it and label it and remember that. And get it home, and then ship it back.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's a shipping hassle, I assume.
And then he also has to make sure that none of them have any kind of corruption, because a lot of the stuff they deal with is
going to have some form of corruption to it as well.
It's not just the typical, like, corruption per se, but it's also the fact that, you know, there's Tyranids, there's Tau, there's Eldar, there's a lot of, like, there's the big aliens we all know.
Yeah.
They are the reason you don't hear more about the side aliens. Like, they have weapons with skulls on them that we can't recognize. And so a lot of the one-sentence Xeno species are because of the Deathwatch.
Yeah.
And so they have a really hard job of, like, well, we stamped out every snake that had that venom. And now I have to make sure none of you were bitten, and we didn't keep samples.
Yeah.
Actually, and I'll be fair,
they probably keep one sample to make an anti-venom, and then that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's deep in a basement. You should never, ever...
You won't even know the thing that it came from.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have, like, their chaplain. You know, he's, like, their battle priest, their therapist. It's a lot rolled into one, and they have to do... Yeah, that's right. Space Marines get, like, battle therapists.
I mean, that's kind of a standard military chaplain, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's precisely what the name on the box says. Typically, they do tend to be really cool because they are the most devoted of the most devoted. So it's like they are the ones who believe in the mission. Mm. They're the ones shouting the litanies at the very front, you know? They are so cool. They will typically have very cool armor as well, too.
Yeah.
You can't miss a chaplain.
They're there and they're bombastic.
Now, typically, it's kind of easy for a chaplain to do their gig. Easier for a chaplain to do their gig because they're all brothers. They're all related, you know? And so, like, an Ultramarine chaplain can just go, think of the efficiency if we clear this front. We will clear cell G4 on the spreadsheet.
They know exactly how to get to the people they're trying to moralize.
Right? Or like a Dark Angels chaplain who will shout and, like, a black box will appear over their mouth and you won't hear what they said, but everyone will react to it. You know? Or like a Blood Angel who will give you a long soliloquy that's really beautifully written, honestly, about the death of Sanguinius. Mm-hmm. Like, they know they know their audience and can tailor for it pretty well. Like,
or the Night Lord who'll go, think of how many skeins of skin this orphanage will acquire you.
Yep, you figured it out. Like the Imperial Fists, just, you know, siege fortify. Next sentence. It's really easy to play into an audience that you know and you are a part of.
Yeah.
That's what they do. But they are removed from that.
Yeah, it's kind of a melting pot chapter, if we're going to be honest here.
You have to inspire 10 different people who come. It's like having to rally, this is topical, your Thanksgiving table to war every single day. And for some people, that's kind of easy. For some people,
That's very difficult.
whew, whew, man, there are some differences in opinion here today, you know? And so, and that is true too.
I now understand why the Brits used to drop a good God Save the Queen every so often, because it doesn't matter what you think. God Save the Queen.
Yeah, God save the Queen, man. We just got to stay focused here. Stay focused. God save the Queen. I don't care about anything else. We just have to look at that. And specifically when you remember, like, in the very, very beginnings of the Deathwatch, some of the people who showed up with, like, we'll cover this later on and what this means, but, like, their armor blacked out, like, their heraldry blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
And they behaved a lot like the traitor Astartes. But, like, that couldn't be the case. There wouldn't be any loyalists in there who would
We have an
seek
example
redemption.
of one.
Yeah, that's precisely what would happen back in the day. Because not all of them did turn traitor. Just they
Yeah,
got trouble.
I'd figure there's like one or two free thinkers in there who'd go, yeah, that Horus guy's pretty cool, but I don't necessarily think I agree with his policy prescriptions. And then they move over to the loyalist side.
And it's a chaplain's job to keep that room together. And aiming correctly. It's so much harder. Yeah. And then the librarians have the unique difficulty of, already you're not picking the best librarians, because librarians, Space Marine librarians, they're psychers. It's a Space Marine who's just as competent with a gun as he is with a spell book. It's as scary as it sounds. It's so scary. And typically,
A battle mage, the Space Marine.
a battle mage with a bolter. It's really not good to bump into one.
No.
And because of that, and because they tend to be rather learned individuals, for you to become a high-ranking librarian in a chapter, you already typically have a really important role. Like, there's a non-zero chance you are, like, the actual librarian for our culture and history. No, you can't have him. What if he dies? We don't have a backup. And so this is the rare time the Deathwatch usually gets, like, second or, like, third pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well, if you think about it, second best is more accurate because you have to. It's more precise. It's the best because first best you full send. You just make it the best. And third best is you're not trying hard enough. But second best is you're trying very hard to strike that balance between very good but not excessive, and you're actually trying.
we watched the Grand Tour. And
Yes, we did.
Sure. Why not? Why? But yes, you have it in
I
one.
can't remember which episode of the Grand Tour that is, but it's the one where they're traveling through Poland.
Sand Job? No,
And
that's Eurocrash, not Sand Job.
It's Poland and then Slovenia
Doesn't
and
matter.
Slovakia and then Hungary. That's the fourth one they go through.
So these librarians, who are tasked with a really, really important job, but critically are kind of underqualified for it, have to grow into their own while keeping all of the Deathwatch's secrets.
They go from second best to first best
Somewhere else.
Yes,
and
I'd imagine there's like a senior librarian like chanting, "I'll make a man out of you,"
No, there isn't.
teaching them how to write spells.
Well, it depends, because typically if we have a librarian, we lost the last one.
Never mind.
Like,
So they just got to figure it out.
Think about it this way, right? They're recruiting for specific tasks over long periods of time, and it's kind of a lot to ask somebody to give me your librarian, because already it's 1 in 100 dudes to become a Space Marine.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them are going to be psychers?
Yeah, not very few are going to be psychers.
So it's kind of a big deal, and then on top of keeping all the Deathwatch's secrets, they get to keep all of these secret vaults with alien stuff that is constantly whispering them to change teams. Come on, dude, it's okay. Trust me. Please, just change teams and free me. Yeah. And then
that's a bit of a toughie.
Because of how far away all the watch stations are, they have to get good enough to send messages across distances that would make most psychers just throw up. Like, no, they have to make calls to Antarctica every day.
Oof. That signal is going to drop every so often. But also they don't have the luxury of letting it drop, so I see the problem here.
They also have dreadnoughts. Yeah. They're not common at all.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it is.
This seems like a logistical and honestly like a espionage level hazard to have.
You're sending 5 to 10 guys behind enemy lines quietly. A dreadnought's not exactly going to fit that description.
I mean, Space Marines are already pretty like big and
not sneaky.
No.
Yeah.
I'd imagine those boot steps hitting the ground shake for a little bit, you could pick them up on seismometers.
And then there's also the second problem of to be put into a dreadnought, you have to have survived very, very, very brutal wounds and then critically been taken away. And there's only 5 to 10 guys. So how exactly are they going to manage to drag you back? It's very, very, very rare. And then on top of all of that, they have to get permission. Because you can't just dreadnought people at random. And so they have to renew their vows to the Deathwatch and be okay with being turned into a dreadnought for them specifically. While they are horrifically injured.
Yeah. No.
And then his actual chapter has to go, yeah, okay, you can dreadnought him. It's a nightmare.
And stop themselves from asking the question, how did this happen?
Yeah. So the few that they have are always very respected. They're typically very, very old, and it's more of like a, hey, Grandpa, how do you fight X? Oh, I fought those back in 1942, you know? Like, that's kind of the role they occupy, being kind of too valuable to risk, because they're the only people who have fought some of the things they fought that don't even get proper names. And so if we lose him, we genuinely lose that information.
Like, you have your librarian, but your librarian is cataloging things, probably not necessarily in the field doing this.
Yeah, and so these guys are repositories of wisdom who can just open up a can whenever they need to. Typically, if you see them on the battlefield,
things are bad?
It's real bad.
Nah.
They're still effective, though. They are still effective. Critically, these are not like old geriatrics with bad joints. They have no joints. So they can still move pretty quick.
They are dreadnoughts. So, like, yeah, it makes sense.
And so they
I was just about to say too, like when you're fighting a new enemy, it does. If anything has, if I've learned anything from Dark Souls, it's that dying helps you learn very quickly.
Oh, they learned the hard way.
So, like, I don't know, maybe that's useful of somebody who got near death fighting something, being able to explain, hey, don't do this. This is what got me in this situation.
And also, don't forget that for a Space Marine to get wounded that badly, it took a lot.
Yeah.
Because you stab a Space Marine, they scab really fast. Like, that's like a thing that has been noted in books that really gives people the ick when they see like a Space Marine get wounded and like immediately like scab and scar.
Yeah.
And it's just
freaky.
You shouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's not
just
possible.
Not normal, you know? So it already takes, it's not immediate, but it is far faster.
It's frighteningly fast.
It's shockingly. I think they almost immediately clot is the thing.
They immediately clot, and I assume they have like a scab within like 20 minutes.
By day's end, it's scabbed. Within a week, it's like a scar.
Yeah.
Which is very fast.
Really fast.
For major wounds. Right? I get a Space Marine from here to here, it'll clot.
This is not, oh, I scraped my knee and it's like scabbed by maybe 2 days later. This is...
And you had to get through their armor.
I got stabbed in one of my, 3 hearts? Two? I got
Mm-hmm.
stabbed in one of my 2 hearts. And
2
like,
hearts, 3 lungs.
Immediately...
Fair mix-up.
One of those hearts is being a little bit overtaxed, isn't it? With a capacity of 3 lungs?
Well,
why not add a 4th in there?
Well, they're described as like a beating, like... kind of in perfect, like left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Yeah.
They're phasic hearts.
Yeah.
They work like 2-phase power.
We've never done Space Marine biology. We should.
No,
I think they have 3 lungs.
There's a surgeon dude on somewhere here on YouTube who has talked about their biology, and that's a very interesting video that I want to watch, but also can't because it would spoil me on things you're supposed to show me.
I love it. It's very good. He's great. But yeah, so to get past all of their biology and their armor and their guns and the fact that there's 9 other dudes there who are very well trained and their speed and their minds, typically their dreadnoughts are a lot.
Yeah.
They fought something horrifying to get dreadnoughted. So you treat them with a lot of respect. They also have their own unique ranks within that have very cool names, like the Castellans of the Black Vault.
That's a cool name. It's a really cool name.
Their job is to guard the Black Vault, which is all their super, super dangerous stuff that is definitely alien in nature, and you should definitely never...
Don't open that.
It's not don't open that. It's don't open that unless you're us. Because the Deathwatch, critically, this is a neat thing about them. They won't hesitate to use this stuff. Like, they just will. It's a part of their mission, so they'll do it, which is rare because in the Imperium, typically, they, like, keep them and covet them and, like, put them in a nice little plexiglass container. But these guys will just open it up and raid it, but it doesn't need guards. Yeah, and then they just put it back. So it's kind of like...
if it's a tool that was useful enough for the enemy to use, then, like, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, they also...
I'm just also not going to think too hard about that because, like, why am I using an enemy's tool?
It's the best tool. Okay.
If it works, it works.
The thing about the Deathwatch is they also study aliens, and so there is...
Do they study aliens? Like, do
this.
they analyze the sociological phenomena that, like, the Eldar develop, or do they research where are your hearts so I can stab them as quickly as possible?
Definitely that one, but also part of it is they are not so... The rest of the Imperium is very conditioned to go, ugh, alien stuff, it's got to be worse. Whereas they will go, that blade cut through things so fast. I'm going to take notes. That got through my battle brother. Certainly that's never happening again.
Let's see if I can use that.
We are either using that against you or building better armor. Like they take a very frank look at it because at the end of the day, this is their job. This is what I have to do. On top of guarding that and doing their jobs, they also guard the alien prisoners they keep because they kind of have a menagerie going on of sorts, but it's mostly for like
study,
horrific purposes.
Study.
There's no two ways about it. Yep, study. Yep, and
I'm going to perform a live vivisection.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to find out where your hearts are.
Yep,
you got to find out where your hearts are.
I figured it was going to be grim.
You got it in one. And then there's also the rank of Kill Marine, where Kill Team wasn't enough. Or actually, Kill Team was probably too much, I'm going to be honest.
Is that not just all of them?
Kind of. But not really, because these guys are... Okay, because here's the thing about, like...
What's more kill about the Kill Marine?
Here's the thing about a kill team. It is a kill team. What are you going to do? Send an apothecary out on a random mission? Seriously? That shows how important the Kill Marines are because they're so good. I don't need an apothecary. I don't need a chaplain.
Oh, they're a one-man band.
They're a one-man band. And then on top of that, they have the Deathwatch champions who are novel fodder. You need a book, they're there. That's kind of their purpose. There's no two ways about it.
Cool.
That's really the main difference between them and the Kill Marines. I'm not going to lie.
It's just these ones get the books.
They're good enough to get books and typically not wear a helmet. That's a biggie. That's a big one. Yeah.
You listen, one Space Marine is bad enough, but a Space Marine with his helmet off, you're dead immediately. He just looks at you. It's over.
You're dead. You may as well be gone.
Give up.
Yep. They also have like tiny, like lesser librarians. Not the full like this is our great librarian, but just a couple running around here and there who just kind of wear like psychic hoods to protect against the constant bombardment from everything they fight, and typically kind of do like observe and learn. And that way, if one goes, it's not a fresh start. It's still not much, but it's a start.
Yeah.
So that's the average watch fortress. They also have like a main watch fortress of sorts, but it's kind of been split off from everything because Galaxy ripped in half. You all know. You already know at this point. But the neat thing about this one is when Space Marines get sufficiently bodied by aliens, they'll just be shipped there for training. Like the Lamenters bumped into the hive, a Tyranid hive. Didn't survive. Went down to a few Marines, and so those that survived were shipped right there for training.
Funny.
Immediately.
It's like, you survived this, you saw this, you're Deathwatch now. Congratulations.
Not really. It's more like how to survive Tyranids, dude. How'd you lose this many?
Oh. I see.
How'd you lose this many?
It's more like boot camp too.
Yeah. And
you didn't do good enough in a first boot camp that you needed a second boot camp.
And this is their biggest watch fortress of them all. It's a whole world that was given to them, and it's a full combined like watch fortress, and there's a bunch of Inquisitors training there as well. So it is the biggest one and the most important, but also kind of in a lame duck spot right now.
What do you mean?
Split off from everything else. Half the galaxy, dude.
Yeah. Wait, is it in the wrong half?
It's either way. They can't. It doesn't.
They can't access.
You rip the U.S. in half. I don't care where D.C. is. It still can't get here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's still pretty important. There are a couple of other ones that are pretty big, and again, it's pretty decentralized, so they can survive pretty well, and they're very, very adaptable. So this hasn't been too big of a thing. It's just kind of changed things a little and reduced its importance slightly.
And I assume there are now more watch keeps or along the span of the big crack in the galaxy? Or would that be more of a Grey Knights?
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. What we do know is whenever you see something being used by the Imperium and it looks a lot like alien tech, they were probably the first to do it and then declassified it.
Which I'm sure took a lot to get done.
Yeah, because like think about it, the scale of 40k, thousands of years.
Using like Xeno weaponry, I assume is probably not going to be like immediately welcomed to most people.
The Deathwatch will use it.
No, I mean most other people are going to go.
Well, typically
that's a Necron sword.
Think about who's using it. You see them on Inquisitors. You see them on Assassins. They just have a job to do too.
Okay, fair enough.
So this has not made it into everybody's hands yet. Mm-hmm. Just, into
the rest of the CIA has gotten it.
Yes. Everyone else has gotten the heart attack gun. Or most other people have gotten the heart attack gun.
Including the bookkeepers.
Yeah, I would say so. They all, because of how decentralized they are and because of the way they work with Inquisitors, sometimes you'll see the Deathwatch be villains. Like, that one Inquisitor who decided the Tyranids need planets to survive. Like, they tend to eat a planet,
firewall,
move on, eat a planet, move on, eat a planet, move on. And it's a devastating, like, ecological disaster running towards different biomes and eating them and moving on. But if you kill the food before it gets there, it'll starve, theoretically. So he went on a massive planetary killing spree, effectively trying to create a firewall of dead planets so the Tyranids couldn't get there. Solid idea. They just went around the firewall. But the Deathwatch was helping.
Didn't they go under it, actually?
It's space. It doesn't matter. It's relative.
There was the plane of the galaxy, firewall, and then they just went...
It's all relative. Whoop. It's all relative. But, while Recruitment was doing all of that, the Deathwatch was there with him.
That sounds like a Deathwatch job.
I mean, it's decentralized. It takes a while for an email to get places. And, like, it seems like, think about it, it does seem like a solid plan that would maybe work. Mm-hmm. So...
But then you ask any other higher up and they go, You burned how many planets?
Well, they also helped them catch live gene stealers and throw them at the orcs. Surely that won't be a problem at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Which, not again, you look at it on paper and you're like, that's a solid plan. Think about it. But then you think about what could happen after the fact.
One of them wins and gets orc genes and now adapts to do that. Or the orc wins, triumphing against this almost unkillable adaptive thing and becomes another biggest orc.
But you'll never get to know that because the moment they finish their watch, they take an oath of silence. Never to speak on any of this.
Cool.
Ever at all. So you won't get to know that.
Cool. So there's just those running around rampant somewhere.
And it, funnily enough, it didn't used to be this way. They kind of just used to be a thing in the side with really, really, really old art. They've existed for a while. But recently, like 2016, 17, around there, they got retconned a little bit for the better, so that we actually got a little bit more about them. And they were started because of the orcs. Specifically that one time called the War of the Beast, where they marched all the way up to Earth and threatened everyone in decent English.
That would definitely warrant a new team of special Xeno killing people.
Yeah, and so everyone immediately agreed when this was suggested, pretty much.
It was just, how do we make this not happen again?
Mm-hmm. And so that is where they started originally. And before that, they were kind of just a Space Marine chapter, but everyone was like, that's terrifying. They have to answer to somebody. So they were then brought in with the Ordo Xenos. So they're kind of right beneath them now. They typically will ask for recruits. But you got to remember, this is an Inquisitor asking, so like, or at least something related to the Inquisition.
You
asking.
Can't say no.
Yeah. And so what'll happen is most Space Marine chapters are vaguely watching their own members for promising recruits. Once your boss notices, then he recommends you to your boss's boss, who then takes a look at you, goes, and then he has to go to his boss's boss's boss, all the way to the chapter master, who eventually goes, that guy is both good enough at his job, but critically not so important, will lose everything.
So they have to do the math on which of their Space Marines to serve to the Deathwatch on a silver platter?
A little bit. It has to pass through several layers. So, like, the apothecary has to look at it and go, like, oh, physically, he's quite the specimen. And then it goes on to the chaplain, who goes, he's got strong spirit, i.e. hates aliens. Oh, my. Like, you open up a textbook, you look up xenophobic, his face pops up. You know, like, hates aliens. And then it goes to the chapter master for final review with all of that. And he goes, yeah, okay, cool. And then this name is given to the Deathwatch, who just kind of hang on to it.
And they will just maybe come for this guy at an undisclosed
sooner
time
or
and
later.
place.
Maybe tomorrow. Maybe never.
Maybe next year?
You don't, once your name is in there, first of all, you don't even know your name's in there. And then it could just be called like 100 years from now, 2,000 years from now. Everyone's name could be in there and you don't know. Just like maybe they're running a background check, maybe they're not. But whenever they do call you, it is a huge honor.
Yeah.
And
because it's like, whoa, the Deathwatch?
Yeah, the Deathwatch are calling you.
The Deathwatch are calling. Whoa.
Sometimes it's a somber thing because I fought by your side for like 100 years. What do you mean they're taking you? And why not me too? Like, what's happening here? Some chapters really hate the Inquisition too. So there is a certain tinge to it there.
Yeah. I'd imagine like the Salamanders wouldn't be the most keen on them. Considering...
Well, not everyone knows what happened to the Celestial Lions.
I was going to think more the Recruitment fiasco. You killed how many people to make that happen?
Yeah, again, you got to remember, this is like... Not everyone knows what Recruitment did because it's the equivalent of CIA documents being declassified where there's still big black chunks missing.
I see.
Like,
never mind.
Like, Inquisitor Recruitment stripped of his duties because from...
There's just a bunch of Sharpie all over
like,
the paper.
you know, it's Recruitment, he did something, and he's no longer an Inquisitor. And maybe the Deathwatch helped him move to... And it resulted in... And... lost. Like, you can't piece this together. It's borderline useless.
Okay.
Only high-ranking Inquisitors know.
This might as well be a Mad Libs sheet at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, why even bother? You know? And that's how the typical... Actually, I haven't seen any declassified stuff, so I don't know if that's how it is here. But in 40k, I thought it is.
We have declassified CIA documents. That's how we know.
I have a great relationship with my federal agent.
I think I mentioned this on a different episode. Like, some of the MK Ultra documents have been declassified, and most of it, like half of these documents or operations, are just paying off drug dealers.
Like I said, my federal agent knows where I stand.
It's public record now.
I don't need him looking into me. Anyway, so... that's how they recruit you, and there's usually a big sort of ceremony as you board this jet black, pretty edgy ship, frankly, and you are bid adieu for, honestly, maybe like a week. Like, I imagine it for the shorter missions. It's like, man, there he goes, gone for... Oh, he's back. What'd you do?
Nothing. I signed an NDA.
No, like, you just get silence. Like, they just... Hey, how's it going? Going great. How was your last week?
Just blinking.
That's it. You can't even blink in rhythm. So you just have to blink.
You blink accidentally in Morse code, subconsciously telling them exactly what you did, and now the Assassinorum sniper who has been trained on your skull for the last 5 hours takes his shot.
Which, I mean, for the Deathwatch, yeah, that doesn't matter because they're all kind of pro tags, so helmets do tend to be off. Problem with that, though, is sometimes you're just gone forever because you die. Because they have a very, very, very high attrition rate. Like, think about it.
Well, considering what they're being sent up against.
You're going against the unnamed aliens in the corners of the galaxy as 10 dudes tops.
Yeah.
Even against the named zone, like the Orcs, the Tyranids, the Tau, that's not good, actually.
I mean, think back to the opening of Space Marine 2, or within like 5 minutes, you are the sole survivor of this kill team.
Do you know the funniest thing? I think the Deathwatch, you're right, by the way. I don't want to gloss over that. You're fully correct. You've got it in one. The Deathwatch have been sent against the... I know they've been sent against the Tyranids. Definitely been sent against the Tau. Gene Stealers, the Eldar, because they have that one shield. The Necrons too, right? I think they've only been sent after the Farsight enclaves, not the Tau proper. I don't think the Tau have been worth it yet.
Really?
I don't think so.
Just Farsight?
Just Farsight.
Dude, the poor Tau.
I love them.
They really
so much.
They really, really, really need to like the respec from science to like religion and full send into the Tauva.
They've been sent to fight things that don't even have names. They are eldritch horrors off in the corner somewhere, and they certainly haven't been against the Tau. That's so funny.
The poor. Well, I guess that's good for them considering
they could not comprehend getting hit by the stuff the Deathwatch does.
No.
Not every chapter ties to the Deathwatch too. So most of them do, but like you can safely, there's a long list of ones that do. Like you throw a dartboard at a group of chapters. I mean, you throw a dart at a dartboard with Space Marines on it, you probably hit somebody who ties to the Deathwatch, but some don't specifically.
Like which ones? Now that I'm thinking about it, White Scars might hate them too, just because. No authority. What? No, I'm going my own way.
We can't be sure, but there are some successor chapters of them that don't tithe. You also have some like the Minotaurs probably don't.
Well, that's because the Minotaurs are just their own thing, as it appears.
Mm-hmm. And then you see like the Black Templars, who are the other super sketchy Space Marines who have been abusing a technicality for the last 10,000 years.
I'm on a crusade. I can't.
And so we truly don't know the size of this chapter. It could be up to a legion. I mean, I'm certain maybe they do, but also they're a force unto themselves almost.
They have their own.
They really don't like Inquisitors because they know about what happened. Who protected the Celestial Lions? Yep.
Huh.
Yeah.
You can't hide espionage from the espionage sketchy guys.
Yep. So sometimes they don't tithe, but there's not like a complete list anywhere. We do know there is also a thing known as a Black Shield, which is basically instead of like being recruited, you show up at their door knocking with your heraldry blacked out, like I mentioned. This used to be for the traitors. And you go in and say, please give me a job, man. Just please give me a job, man. To which they put you through rigorous and brutal testing, and maybe
you end up a Deathwatch member.
Maybe. And the whole thing is you symbolically destroyed your old identity because the heraldry matters a lot. Think about how much Space Marine art you've seen at this point, and how the heraldry is usually still intact.
Yeah.
For them to yank it off is kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even like. We keep coming back to Space Marine too, because I think it just gets the point across pretty well. Like Titus still has his Ultramarine pauldron on; it's just blacked out and under a sheet for most of the. Yeah,
he showed up like that. His name wasn't in there. He showed up like that because he saw things in the and so he felt dishonored. We'll maybe do a Titus video at some point. Actually, probably will, but we need to finish the playthrough of it, so stay tuned for that.
That we do.
Yeah, and so they typically...
I need to paint my little Titus model and bring him in here.
You should. And so you go in, you take a very brutal test. It's like the SAT, but like the math portion is at a live firing range. And maybe you'll pass it.
Can you calculate the trajectory of your bolter shots to within precise measurement of like nanometers?
Oh, no, you are in the range and that you are being fired at.
Oh.
You're taking the math portion.
I see.
Yeah, and so if they pass, they're a member of a Deathwatch, and within the Deathwatch, they're even seen as a little bit of a pariah because it's kind of bad luck. Not fully, but kind of. Mm-hmm.
How so? Is it you gave up
Again,
your heraldry?
This is a person who showed up with no heraldry. You could be related to Perturabo.
It's we literally don't know you. We don't know where you come from. We don't trust you.
Yeah. That's how it is. You got it at home pretty much. Mm-hmm. And with the recruiting out of the way, the Deathwatch in their first iteration helped win the War of the Beast. With the first couple of members of Deathwatch coming from a couple of failed invasions of orc worlds because they were really, really, really on it during that time period. We've mentioned the War Moons. Mm-hmm. They took out a couple.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Just by themselves? They
justified their existence almost immediately, and then everyone went, they did that. We couldn't. Put somebody in charge of it.
How did they do that?
Yeah.
Make this official. Keep doing this.
Yeah, this is official. Keep doing this. Keep an eye on them, though. And also, like, you get really cool bits of art of them in combat, because that's kind of all they do nowadays. Mm-hmm. And the thing I love the most about Deathwatch art is look at that. Look at all of that.
You can see all of the different chapters. Is that Magnus?
No.
Oh. Sorry,
No,
I'm
that's
from a
very
distance.
Eldar. No, that's very much.
That is Eldar.
It's very much.
Sorry,
Eldar.
I saw a big red dude, and I'm like, with big hair, and I'm like, that must be Magnus.
Of all the chapters out there, they are probably the most with the with blue hyperlinks in their Wikipedia page. If you get what I mean, like because they tend to be very important, very singular figures, and also because Deathwatch
They interact with everything.
It lends itself to books and games very easily. There's a lot of named characters. There's a lot of named and important members of the Deathwatch. So many I cannot cover them. And they've also all done so much stuff. Effectively, if it's an alien, save for probably the Tau, they have gone against it and washed it. I'm talking, even the Harad I think they've gone against.
I was going to ask earlier, did they finish off the Harad because the Iron Warriors couldn't?
Okay, no need to rub salt in the wound. But they have gone on every single crusade possible wielding weapons like that.
I wonder where that sword came from.
I wonder where they got that sword from.
No one will ever know.
And they do it all with it's fun because, you know, sometimes you'll see Space Marines and they're very stoic about their job. These guys tend to really enjoy it and tend to be very like high energy about it because
they have a smile on their face when they're purging the Xeno.
And they're definitely listening to savages from Pocahontas over and over again while they do their jobs. Like barely even human. Yeah. Yeah. As they go about it, that's fully them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, look at him. On his fist, he has the Xeno and a skull above it, while wielding one of their weapons, and he's clearly not pleased.
Yeah, that is that energy.
Yeah, we hear the drums of, whoa, yeah.
I see.
Yep. That is precisely what they do with extreme prejudice. Like, they hate aliens. Oh my God. It's like the one thing that bonds them, genuinely, other than trauma. Because
listen, I may not know which chapter you come from. You could be an Iron Warrior for all I care. As long as you hate that blue thing more than I hate you, we're good.
Dude, you're already far too kind. I don't care what chapter you're from, as long as you hate that thing, we're good. Oh my God, it's kind of like the glue that holds them together. but also, they do have genuinely rather difficult missions, and at a certain point, it kind of doesn't matter what chapter I'm from. You are trying to not kill me. In fact, you're doing the opposite of that. You're trying to help me. So we will at least form some form of a friendship.
Yeah.
Which leads to some really unlikely pairings, and it's a really good... It poses a question I ask myself very often, which is what would have happened if the heresy didn't happen and these brothers never split off.
If there was no family feud, the family stayed together.
There was no family feud, truly. And they did stay together. And every time we get a glimpse of that, it is the biggest tragedy in 40k because you realize, oh, you were supposed to work together. Oh, that's so neat. Like whenever you see Iron Warriors paired with Imperial Fists, you're like, this is why. This is why your fixation is walls, both of you.
Beginners to the 40k lore are just like, oh, wait a minute, these are meant to be hot swappable, so like you're expendable. One is expendable, and the more you get into it, the more you realize, no, you were meant to complement each other rather than be replacements for each other.
Like Dorn will build the perfect fortress, and Port Trouble will make it unpleasant to be near. He will make it a brutal grid to walk through,
or maybe offer some advisement of like, okay, yeah, you've made a very tall and very tough fortress, Dorn, but it's a square, and you see, if you made like it into a star shape, then one wall could always be fortifying and defending another wall.
And so you have, on top of that, you also have like pairings where they're not necessarily working together per se, but helping each other kind of unwind, you know, because you will have like the Dark Angel, who's a paranoid doomsday prepper who refuses to share anything, paired with like a literal party animal in the form of a space wolf, and like the Dark Angel will still never tell him anything about his background, but might share a drink with him after making sure he drank from it first and he's fine. You know, like it really, you get a very they're so paranoid.
I still think that the unstoppable trio would be Gilliman, Dorn, Perturabo.
Yeah, that's just unfun if they wound up
like
on the same
that
side.
would be horrendous to deal with.
Well, I mean, Perturabo paired with Mortarian's also horrifying.
Chemical weaponry.
No, just the toughest Marines. Just the walls.
Valid.
It's just the wall. The wall. The wall.
The wall. I love that video.
And so you really, it's so much fun to see. And even though not all of them particularly like being under the Inquisition, typically, if you've lived long enough in the Deathwatch, you tend to bury the various father-related hatchets that you have from the long-standing 10,000-year family feud. And you get to see something so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so neat. And it also makes you wonder, maybe we shouldn't keep them in chapters. Maybe we should start mixing and matching here. Because like this is working really well.
It is very funny that the most melting pot chapter is also the most xenophobic chapter.
It is so funny because it is like, we are the melting pot for people only. It is the most like, it's such a weird pairing. It's such a weird pairing, but it's so funny. It's so funny. And obviously you get like Space Marine culture shock from it because like duh. You just got yanked out of the Ultramarines where everybody polishes their boots.
And then suddenly you see a space wolf over there going nya and then drinking poison.
Yeah, sure.
Except no, not nya, more like RAR XD. There we go. That's the one.
Sure. Sure, why not? Yeah. And so you get a very, over time, a very functional military unit that's very closely bonded, and each one's weaknesses, because they are so different, get covered up by another's strengths. And then you can kind of see like, oh,
that's how you all were meant to work together.
This is why you were all brothers. I see. You're supposed to kind of like, it's like the rivalry thing of like, you're supposed to like, iron sharpens iron kind of a situation.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately,
these gears were all supposed to mesh together.
Yep. But the funny thing is though, despite how buddy they will be with themselves, they still have that little bit of like Space Marine air of superiority to them, because like, for example, their ships are kind of autonomous. They like, the black ships that they fly, and those things.
Those things?
Yeah, those things are so cool, right?
They're autonomous?
Kind of. So you're dealing with the most secretive units, right? But also they need to get places and they need pilots. So how do you get a pilot to swear to secrecy forever? The answer is you find the best pilots you can, you meld them with the plane against their will.
I see.
That you go, hey, I have a very neat job for you. Please sign here. Get servitored forehead.
And then they will never leave that plane.
And they will never, ever, ever leave that plane. However, that plane is not it's like, it's not an extension of them. Like, truly, there's an argument, because everyone's a villain in 40k. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, everything sucks. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the best solution, because they get to feel like, because the plane is their body now. Mm-hmm. So they can pull off things that most other things just cannot do.
Yeah.
Because it is like, oh, I felt that in my right pinky. Let me deal with that. Mm-hmm. However,
I can feel a little bit too much like overpressure on my right aileron. I might want to pull back a little bit so I don't snap it off.
Yeah. However, the Deathwatch kind of don't like this.
Why not? This seems very efficient, although grim.
It's not a moral problem. It's just like, it's a mortal piloting that.
Would they rather?
You gotta remember, they are the living embodiment of Space Marines. Do it like girls get it done. Like, they are the embodiment of that one scene, but instead of, like, every single woman in Marvel forced into one single square, it is, like, 10 buff dudes. That's it. Like, that is what they are for, and so it does kind of reinforce some internal biases that do exist in some Space Marines, because I'm going to be honest, I can only see a human miss so many times before I go, dude,
literally have perfect aim. 100% pristine aim. I have not missed once.
Yeah. You're embarrassing us. You prayed over that gun and then missed.
Let me drive the plane.
Yeah. Like, you prayed over that gun and missed what was a prayer for. You literally wasted my canon grandfather's time. What did you pray for? You know? And so that is kind of an issue with them that's kind of unlikable, or makes them come off as a little unlikable. Also, because they're very, kill teams, kill Marines, they're very kill happy. They do kind of tend to come off as a little one note.
Disconcerting.
or cultureless, frankly. Like, they don't have as many fun side things they do.
My personality is kill.
They're the definition of, like, I am a weapon. Verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is kind of another drawback to them. But they get so many interesting things, and they get to do so many interesting things as well.
But it's like it can be excused.
You can
a
see
little bit.
why people like them.
Yeah.
But now I got to turn it over to you. What do you think of the HBICs? It's head bigots in charge, by the way. I don't know what you thought I meant, but that's what they're at. Like, I love them so much, but they're so terrible. Like, it's so easy. It's so easy because, like, you zoom out of the Imperium for a moment and you're like, facts. Facts, aliens suck. That is a 10-foot tall lizard drooling acid. I hate it. Mm-hmm. And that alien has such a high superiority complex, they've developed a new word for us that I don't like hearing so often. Like,
they'd get along with Frieza.
And Ruckus. Like, I get why it is, but then you also zoom in and see the Imperium's response to it. You go, oh, this is why this is happening. It's like everybody here is a villain, and it's so funny.
This universe is mutually assured destruction. The story.
It's so funny. It's because they commit to, here's the thing, they don't like hide it. Like, my job is to purge the alien. Like, you hear this litany all the time in a lot of 40k media, and these are the guys who break through a wall just to get me.
Just to make it happen.
Yeah, you know, because like it's kind of easy to forget whenever you're talking about the different chapters, and the Blood Angels like to do art from time to time. They are still super weapons. 4 Marines can accomplish a shocking amount of
They
violence.
are still frightening.
Yeah, like, they are definitionally ultra-violent. That is what their job description is. And they do that until they don't have enough space on their foreheads for studs, which usually doesn't happen, I'm going to be honest.
They start looking like a reptile.
Actually, no, because the way it scales, you physically couldn't. Even with Dante, he has... Anyway, what do you think of him?
I think they are cool, aside from, like...
I mean,
like,
it's
the entire personality just being kill is it's
sometimes
it's a bit one note, but I do like the
sometimes. Like I said, I gotta mention their drawbacks.
I like the gear meshing together of just like, oh, these are how the legions were supposed to work together. Like, again, to actually see the triple threat of Perturabo, Gilliman, and Dorn working together, and then have, like, I don't know, maybe Iron Warrior secreted into the Deathwatch to work with them, I think is a cool prospect.
Like, there is so many fun stories you could have with the Deathwatch that it is no wonder they are really high on my personal list, because you could do everything from, like, what you just spoke about now, like the internal drama of discovering you're definitely an Iron Warrior. You're definitely an Iron Warrior.
Most definitely.
And how they deal with that, be it like them being deployed, because Chaos likes to show up everywhere, and somebody going, like a Chaos Marine going, recognize you. Just name dropping him, and everyone going, how does he know you? To like the potential of a Deathwatch horror game where you are just a Tau the first time the Imperium deigned you a threat enough.
And immediately, your first reaction is just like mouth agape, shocked, deer in the headlights.
And they also have my favorite, one of my favorite, I'm not going to say my favorite, but one of my favorite Space Marines, who is the Lamenter, who genuinely thinks he's the last Lamenter.
This poor guy.
Remember him? He's in the Deathwatch.
This poor guy.
Like, genuinely, he believes his chapter died at the hands of a Hive fleet. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, how can you not like them? Oh, also, obviously, because they get to use alien gear, they get really, really, really cool art.
I assume they also get really creative with what they, like, I'm talking Monster Hunter level, like, let's take a Brachydios' tail and turn it into a sword.
Dude, the Deathwatch books are so fun. They're so much fun. They're so cool. And that is another niche that they get to occupy, where it's like, didn't know you could use an Eldar for that. Mm-hmm. Sure, why not? Didn't think a Spirit Stone accomplished that, but sure, why not?
That Necron sword literally vaporized someone in front of my eyes instead of cutting through them. I'm going to take that.
They also get full-size Space Marine shotguns, which is just cool. That's not
literally the super shotgun.
Yeah, like, they're so much fun. I just want to see more of them. Honestly, other than the complaints I complaints because typically I gotta show both sides. State sponsored hype man, but also like these are the reasons why some people don't like them. You know, another one I would say is a personal one is they don't get creative enough with the alien stuff they use. It's very much so often turning it into like a sword, and I kind of wish they would get adapted a little bit more. I want to see like
but the sword is so effective when I can sprint at you at Mach Jesus.
They fight things that have necrodermis and their armor doesn't have it yet.
That's a bit lame.
Right?
That's a bit lame.
Right. See what I mean? I'm just saying that'd be cool. Send them against the Tau and give us a Space Marine with like a functional reactor. That could be cool. Like a Space Marine with Tau derived armor,
or
terrifying.
Or a mech.
Because then you're stomping on the like Titan's feet, you know. But like just give.
But imagine a Space Marine with a Zord,
or just a Space Marine with a railgun. Like if there's so much room
hand
here,
that to a former Raven Guard.
Right. You have it has clicked. It has clicked. You figured out why people like them. You got it. I won. I did my job. Do you see the potential?
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Does bring an end to this episode. Make sure you sound off in the comments or which one you want to see get made, and we will see you next week for one of the 4 options, which should be also on a poll on the community post, so check that out as well. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for being you.